Tell me about yourself.
So I have lived in Springfield 35 years. My grandparents are from the Ozarks, and so my mom's side of the family's lived in this area for a couple of generations. And they're from down in Ozark County, Gainesville, Tecumseh area. Moved here in 1990 from Louisiana, where I went to college for architecture school, and have worked for Butler Rosenberry Partners, now BRP Architects, for 23 years. During that time, I worked for a variety of clients that had office in Springfield and did projects nationwide. I also got involved with a lot of community organizations during that period, a lot of bicycle-related infrastructure kind of things. I got involved with downtown. Our office was always downtown or Commercial Street for the entire period I've been working in Springfield. Then after 23 years at BRP, I've spent the last 12 years with Vecino Group, which is a real estate development company here where we do affordable housing projects across the country. We're currently about 10 states. And I get to see, from my past work and my current work, I get to see how a lot of other cities operate, from their land approvals, zoning, and those kinds of things. I'm also president of my neighborhood association here in Springfield currently, and I sit on the board of the Urban Land Institute of Southwest Missouri.
So using that experience in your life and what you've done in the community, what about that would qualify you to be on city council? Why do you want to be on city council?
So I ran a couple of years ago against a different opponent, Derek Lee, and I thought we ran a really good race. I got close to, 47% of the vote during that race, and so I felt like my visibility and acknowledgement from the community was good. And I feel like now, 2 years later, I've got a little bit of experience in political campaigning, and because last time it was more by the seat of my pants, last minute sort of thing. This time I feel like I've got a better team, and I feel like I've trained my entire career to do this very job right here. Not only working in our community with nonprofit boards, organizations, et cetera, but also across the country working with different constituents and different cities and different zoning efforts, looking how they grow and how they're working and how they're not working. I feel like I've trained my entire career to be in this position to help our city.
Let's talk endorsements. Do you have any endorsements with your campaign?
So the endorsements I currently have are with the Central Labor Council here in Springfield, as well as the LIUNA 663 labor union.
In your opinion, from your perspective, what are 2 to 3 issues you think are impacting Springfield the most?
I think we're being impacted by, there's probably 3 categories. I'll just break it down into categories. One is, I feel like we're still thinking more like a big town than a small city. And we are now a small city. We should be thinking more along the lines of an urban development pattern as opposed to a suburban development pattern. Yes, we've got cities all around us, and we should be working closely or more closely with them as a leader in our geographic region to help everybody rise a little bit and not be in some sort of competition against other cities around us. I feel like that's kind of one category of work that we need to spend more time on. I think in that light, we also have people who've lived here all their lives, and this is what they've known. And at some point, their perceptions are different than what they could be. There's perceptions about downtown. There's perceptions about our traffic problems. There's perceptions about how we are organized as a city. And I think, a lot of those have some grounded, solid facts. But I also think some of those things can change. Transit, for instance, is one of those things. I think everybody believes that our transit system is broken, it doesn't work, and it's just for people that can't afford a car. And we need to kind of work on that a little bit more and think more like a small city than a big town. And then lastly, I think neighborhoods have taken the brunt of some of our growth pattern issues, not only in development occurring, against them or within their areas, but also our older neighborhoods have deteriorated over time. The infrastructure deteriorated, and so I feel like reinvesting in our neighborhoods is going to make our city a lot stronger.
Speaking of developments, given your profession and your involvement, especially staying in touch with politics, you're more than aware of the back and forth with several developments. You've got the Galloway Apartments that went to a city vote, the National Sunshine situation. Now we're seeing one with Chimney Hills. They just filed their petition. As somebody who has seen both sides of these issues very closely, what would you propose as maybe a compromise, or what would you like to see done in these situations that could satisfy both parties?
To be clear, there have been 6 controversial projects in Zone 4 in the last several years. And I'm fairly adept at the knowledge of all of them. I was involved with a few of them. The Seven Brew project in my neighborhood was one of the ones I got pretty deeply involved with. And what I want to see happen, and what I'm committing to do, is a couple of things. One is neighborhoods in general need to understand that growth is going to happen. And you can't just say no to everything. So there's a line in the sand that I think a lot of neighborhoods are drawing and say, no, and that's just not reasonable. I think a lot of developers come in and say, I can do what I want, or get the approvals to do what I want. And that's not reasonable. I feel like the sit-down conversation of, hey, what's the common ground between those organizations? Where are the differences? Can we solve some of the differences with a few adjustments on one side or the other? Those conversations are really not happening in a productive manner. And that's what I want to bring to the table. First of all, as a city council member of Zone 4, would be to sit down and have those productive conversations and facilitate those. But secondly, thinking longer term, each neighborhood really needs its own little mini comprehensive plan. Much like the city has a new comprehensive plan, each neighborhood should have its own miniature comprehensive plan. There's a few neighborhoods that already have that. Midtown, the Roundtree neighborhood has got a new urban conservation district, and that's now adopted as part of the zoning code, that urban conservation district. So there's more certainty as to what the neighborhood is willing to do and wants to do, and gives a little bit of a broad brushstroke to developers to say, here's what we'd like to see happen. And so between those two things, I think that's what I'd like to do to help solve that situation.
Another controversial issue is it already passed. It was the expired tag ordinance. Mm-hmm. I'm sure you've heard both sides of that. I've repeated it several times in all these interviews. Yeah. Just if you were on council and you were given the ability to vote on that ordinance, how would you have voted and why?
So I'll be honest, I've not read all the details of that ordinance. I probably should and probably need to. I've not read them all. Fundamentally, I feel like it was a little overreach in some ways. And maybe too quick of a conversation, and got done really quickly without having more back and forth conversation among all the constituents. It seems like as long as there's some basis for not just seeing a car and towing it, if there's another violation or something else involved, that may be reasonable. There's a lot of money to be collected on behalf of the city and the county to redeem that amount of money that hasn't been paid. But I also know people get in situations where they just can't, and they need an opportunity to be able to fix that. And sometimes they have to get caught before they get the opportunity to fix it. I fully understand that. So I don't know what the details of the execution of that are going to look like. But given what I know, I probably would have voted no.
And I think one of my last questions is simply, why should people vote for you?
I think people should vote for me because it's a pivotal moment in our city's growth history right now. And we need the diversity of expertise on council. We have some really good policy folks. We have some really good legal folks. We've got some technical engineering folks. We've got good financial people on council. I think it's time to add this, neighborhood development, design-oriented person that other council members can look to and go, hey, what do you think? Because I'm going to look to other people for policy issues. I'm going to look to other people for legal issues on council. And I really think that we are at this point in time, especially with our new comprehensive plan, the new zoning code that's being proposed. It's very different than our current zoning code. We really need expertise on council that can really pay attention to that and provide guidance.
Is there anything that you would like to add? I'm going to open the floor up and give it to you. If there's anything you want to say or anything you want to add that we didn't ask about.
So, fundamentally, one of the things I learned a couple of years ago when I ran, there was this work session that was put on by Better Block SGF. They're called a tactical rogue sort of organization, boots on the ground, that really want to try different things. They're the ones that put together the little seating areas on South Street for a while, right? The ones that took up a few parking spaces. They put on a lot of different little activities. One of the activities they put on 2 years ago was they put up the red flag issues in our city out of the booklet and the plan, and asked 7 different teams of young professionals and students to tackle the red flag issues. And they were given they could choose any one of them. I thought it was really interesting that 4 of the teams, all young people, all 4 teams chose transit as their tackle. And it told me that that's one of the things that young people in our city want. They want better transit. And that doesn't mean just the bus, right? It means getting around without having a car. It means having places to live that they can work close to where they live. It means having more neighborhood-driven nodes or districts that they can live, go get something to eat, do their shopping without having to have a car. And I think it was interesting that all 4 teams came at it from a different way. One of them said, let's find ways to get better bus stops. Another one said, why don't we look at different kinds of vehicles for our public transportation system? Another one said, let's look at the routes and how they go and where they go. And another one looked at, how do we change the perception that transit is just for poor people? And I felt like that combination of work and effort and thought just told me that we got to be asking young people what they want from our city, not people my age. We need to be asking the 20-somethings and the 30-somethings what they want from our city, and that's what I want to be able to do, is ask those questions and say, what do you want from our city? Because ultimately, they're the ones going to be living here. They're the ones we want to attract and retain so that our city can grow and thrive. And so I feel like that's the one thing that maybe is, I'd like to put out there is, if anybody's interested in talking to me about what they want in this city, please call me.